Usually I just sit here and I talk to you about truth and data, and I talk to you about numbers that are just not adding up. But today, the only number that matters is 9. 9 innocent children at Tumbler Ridge and 25 other children that are fighting for their lives. In the last 24 hours, something happened that the mainstream media is struggling to comprehend. They wanted to talk about division. They wanted to politicize the pain. But what we saw was something else. For the first time in years, I saw our leaders from every stripe put down the talking points and speak to us as a human being. But more importantly, I saw you. They say that we're divided. They say that we are broken. But take a look at this. This is Maya. She got shot twice and is fighting for her life in Children's Hospital. And her parents came out and asked for help. They wanted to raise $45,000. And in just 24 hours, Canadians and people around the world obliterated that goal. The money didn't come from liberals. It didn't come from conservatives. It came from fathers. It came from mothers. It came from neighbors who refused to let evil have its last word. This is the evidence that I usually look for, and the evidence is clear and proves one thing. Evil visited us, yes, but that is not us. Generosity is our default setting. Unity is our baseline.
Mr. Speaker, this morning, families in Tumbler Ridge, British Columbia, woke to a different world. Parents, grandparents, brothers, sisters, began this day as their first day on earth without someone they loved dearly. What happened has left our nation in shock and all of us in mourning. 9 people killed, more than 25 others injured, some still in hospital fighting for their lives. The investigation is ongoing, and we must allow law enforcement the time and space to do their work accordingly. Mr. Speaker, as this House knows, Tumbler Ridge is a community of some 2,400 people nestled in the foothills of the Rockies. It is one of the youngest towns in the great province of British Columbia. It's carved out of the wilderness in the 1980s, built on the promise of the resource economy and by the determination of its residents. It's a town of miners, teachers, construction workers, families who have built their lives there, people who have always shown up for each other there. When wildfires raged, neighbors helped each other pack up and move out of harm's way. They checked in on seniors and those living alone. They made sure that no one was left behind. When the coal mine shut down, residents supported local businesses. They shared leads for jobs, and they lifted each other up. Mr. Speaker, Tumbler Ridge represents the very best of Canada, resilient, compassionate, and strong.
And thank you, Prime Minister, for your eloquent words. I'm sure words that you never wanted to deliver on the floor of this chamber. As fathers, we both know the feeling of sending our kids to school, hoping that they'll play and perform, laugh and learn, but most of all, come home to us in our loving arms at night. Sure, there's the odd skinned knee or sore belly when they get back, but that's usually the worst of our concerns. Yesterday, as we were tucking our kids in, I got a terrible phone call from Bob Zimmer, the Member of Parliament, who represents Tumbler Ridge, telling me that a shooting had occurred, and though not details were not yet well known, it was going to be bad. And those details have come in. Children who should have been thinking about homework and hockey were instead thrown into terror, grief, and unbearable uncertainty. 9 lives were stolen, 25 injured. 9 families devastated, an entire community in grief. That community is the best of Canada, a community of miners and loggers, hardworking people, hardy, strong, the kind of people who fight their own battles but never hesitate to help a neighbor in need. They're the backbone of this nation. Behind every number is a name, a child, a friend, a teacher, a neighbor, a family member, each with a story. For as the rabbi said, each life is its own universe. As a father, I can only imagine the phone call or visit that brought the news, the panic, the helplessness, the heartache that followed. No parent should ever have to fear that their child will not return home from school. No parent should ever bury their own child.
I want to say that I'm actually proud of our political leaders today to come out and put politics aside and speak to us as humans. We could come together and mourn as a country. If you're going to do one thing today, please pray for the families, friends, and everybody involved. Now we're going to move on and take a look at mainstream media and what they are reporting. Here is CBC This Morning. Listen up closely to what they say.
And initially, when the active shooter alert went out, police said that they were looking for a female with brown hair wearing a dress, but we have not heard anything more from police about a possible suspect. Also, careful not to call the person a gunman.
It's been nearly 24 hours, and here is CBC on their latest update for us.
Also, a note on our coverage of this story today. We know at CBC News that there are people online who are talking about the possible suspect and other details surrounding this case, but this information has not been confirmed to us by either sources or law enforcement, and we want to stick to confirmed details only as we continue to cover this story. And as we learn more, we will certainly bring all of the confirmed information to you.
The Canadian government gives $1.4 to $1.5 billion to CBC to provide journalism. It's not a journalist's job to wait for verification. It's literally their job to verify the information for themselves. That's what journalists do. Since the pandemic, the establishment outlets are happy to provide government talking points. They sit around and wait for the government to tell them what to say. Yes, there is first responders and RCMP that are primary sources, but you could also go and do your own searches. It's not the only source. There are family members, there's eyewitness, there's so on. It's a journalist's responsibility to find and talk to them. We didn't get any of that. So what are we paying $1.4 billion for if they're not going to do their job? Here's the latest police statement. Listen up closely.
If you have questions, I'm prepared to take them at this time.
Officer Rowena Daya from Global News. Could you please expand a little bit on the suspect? Was he known to police? Were there any red flags regarding his mental health?
So a suspect is identified as an 18-year-old female by the name of Jessie. We have a history of police attendance at the family residence. Some of those calls were related to mental health issues.
For this report, we're just going to stick to what is being said, so you could come up with your own conclusion. Here's another segment from the police report that was just released.
Any of the interactions with police, did any of them have to do with weapons, guns
Yes.
in particular?
Yes.
Could you expand on that, please?
I will say that, again, I'm not trying to be too circumspect, but police have attended that residence in the past, approximately a couple of years ago, where firearms were seized under the criminal code. I can say that at a later point in time, the lawful owner of those firearms petitioned for those firearms to be returned, and they were.
Were criminal charges laid in relation to those firearms?
No.
All I have to say is I have a lot more questions than answers after this small segment. Here's a clip of the police officers entering the building when they got called to go. Here is Kaylor Betts. You can find him on YouTube. We have a lot of questions, Canada. He nails it here.
All right, I got some questions. So yesterday in the province I currently live in Canada, there was one of the worst school shootings, not just in Canada, but in history. And we can't agree on much these days, but we can all agree that these need to stop. And therefore, it's time to ask some questions. The suspect is Jesse Strang, and now it's evident that he was transgender. So my questions are the following. Why does everyone in society know at this point that the shooter's transgender, yet the media and law enforcement are hesitating to acknowledge this? Why does this group of people now account for the most mass shooters per capita? Why are government and law enforcement not engaging in a conversation around the correlation between trans people and mass shooters? Why are government and law enforcement not engaging in a conversation around the correlation between the use of psychiatric pharmacological drugs like SSRIs and mass shooters? Why do we automatically blame these tragedies on guns, and we're going to do that in Canada, and then use them to enforce stricter gun laws like we're going to do in Canada, when guns have been around for all of modern history, yet school shootings have only been happening in recent history? Why are governments not open to and engaging in conversation around trans ideology, particularly during childhood, being a mental illness? Why do we call body dysmorphia a mental illness and tell our kids the objective truth about their bodies, but we don't call gender dysphoria a mental illness and tell kids the objective truth about their bodies? Why are we not only so quick to celebrate kids changing their genders and even supporting irreversible medical interventions in that process, and yet there is zero conversation and questions being allowed to be asked about the long-term side effects and how this could be correlated with mental health issues? And I got more, but I'll just pause there. Just some questions that I think we all should be asking. I don't hate trans kids or trans people. I love all people. I just want the truth, as always, and I want to help every single human thrive. And this ain't it. Because at this point, it's starting to come after our kids, literally, in more ways than one. And if you ain't asking questions yet like this, you're part of the problem.
What do you think, Canada? Should we be asking more questions or less questions? We cannot heal unless we're honest. While the media tries to score points, we need to take a look at the data. We need to do a forensic audit of the last 10 years. There's a report that came out in Canada. Mental health is a privilege. It should be a right. We got some information here. When we look at Canada and the rest of the G7, Canada invests 6.3% of its health budget on mental health versus France and Germany that do between 12 and 15%. Just taking a look at the numbers, Canada spends the least in the G7 on mental health on their budget. We are failing our own people, and it's by design. Post-pandemic, self-reported poor mental health in this country has tripled. We have hollowed out the support system, ignored the warning signs, and then we act surprised when the dam breaks. This is not about politics anymore. It's about a decade of negligence that we need to reverse immediately. I'll leave a link to this report in the video description. And while we try to fix this, mainstream media is doing what they always do: sell you rage. They're trying to turn this tragedy into a wedge issue. They want you angry at your neighbor. They want you to blame the other side. Check out all of these articles that said a female is responsible. Don't give them that pleasure. The outlier here is not the Canadian people. The outlier is the media class that have forgotten how to mourn without an agenda. Check out City News, which beautified the photo of the person responsible. And this is why we don't trust our mainstream media anymore. By the way, we could disagree on taxes, we could disagree on policy, but we could all agree on this. We protect our children, we help our neighbors, and we're gonna fix this broken mental health system in Canada. This is not a partisan issue, but as parents, this is the best country on planet Earth. Let's act like it. Don't fall for the media spin and get us all divided. Look out for your neighbors. Call them. Let's stay united. We saw some amazing things. Lots of people sharing stories and coming together. That is the Canadian spirit. If you're going to do one thing today, Please pray for the families that are involved in this tragedy. They could use all the prayers that we could give them. Make sure you hug your family and friends and just give them a call. See how they're doing today. I'm going to be working on another report right away. I'll see you on the next one.